The Vatican Library is not just a place of knowledge, it is a prison for things that should have never been written, never been spoken, never even been thought, and yet they exist, trapped in brittle pages and bound in ink that was never meant to be used for words. They say the Vatican Library holds the rarest knowledge in the world, but knowledge is not always meant to be found. There are books that should have crumbled into dust centuries ago, yet they remain untouched by time, as if the knowledge within refuses to be forgotten. Some are bound in cracked leather, others in materials no scholar has dared to name. Beyond the grand halls and marble corridors known to scholars, past the carefully cataloged archives of history and theology, there are rooms that few have seen. Vaults where the light struggles to reach, where the very walls seem to lean inward as if recoiling from what they hold. And then there are the things that move in the shadows. They watch, they wait. I know because I saw one. I was told not to look. I was warned. But some warnings come too late. I should have never taken this job. I should have never stepped foot in this place. But now it's too late because I broke one rule, and now something is coming for me. Father Bellamy was already waiting for me when I arrived for my first shift. The massive wooden doors groaned as they shut behind me, sealing me inside. The walls were lined with towering bookshelves, stretching into darkness. Some of the books were older than civilization itself. Bellamy's face was pale, his hands trembling as he handed me a yellowed, crumbling parchment. "Follow these rules exactly," he whispered. "If you break even one, you won't survive until morning." His voice was so quiet, as if he was afraid something would hear him. I forced out a nervous laugh. "You're joking, right?" He didn't smile. Instead, he grabbed my wrist with a grip that was ice cold. "Read them." My eyes flicked to the parchment, and as I read, a chill spread through my entire body. The 5 terrifying rules of the Vatican Library night shift. Rule 1. The shadows move. Do not acknowledge them. The library is never truly dark, yet the shadows shift. You will see figures in the corner of your eye, tall, thin, unnatural. You must not look at them. You must not react. If they know you see them, they will follow you home. Rule 2. Never open the red book. There is one book among the forbidden texts with no title, no markings, only a red cover. You might feel it calling to you. You must never touch it. If you open it, something inside will see you, and once it does, it will never stop watching. Rule 3. If you hear a knock, do not open the door. There is no one else here at night, no visitors, no staff, no one. If you hear a knock at the main doors, ignore it. If it knocks twice, pray. If it knocks 3 times, it's already inside. Rule 4. The stairs go down too far. Never step on the 14th stair. The Vatican Library has a single spiral staircase leading to the lower archives. It should have 13 steps. Some nights, however, you will count 14. If you step on the 14th stair, you will hear breathing beneath your feet. Do not look down. Do not keep walking. If you do, something will pull you under. Rule 5. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the librarian will check on you. Do not speak to him. There has not been a librarian here for over a century. But at exactly 3:33 a.m., you will hear footsteps. A man in black robes will appear between the shelves. His smile is too wide, his eyes are too dark. He will look at you, waiting. If you speak to him even by accident, you will take his place, forever. I stared at the parchment, my hands trembling. I swallowed hard. "This is a joke, right?" Bellamy didn't answer. He just looked at me with a deep, hollow sadness in his eyes. And then he whispered, "The last archivist, he broke Rule 6. My stomach dropped. I looked down at the parchment again, scanning it desperately. There's only 5 rules. Bellamy took a step back. His face was drained of all color, his voice barely audible when he spoke. "Exactly." And then, before I could say another word, he turned and walked out the doors, locking them from the outside. I was alone, or at least, I thought I was. Because the moment the doors closed, I heard it. A sound that should not exist, something scraping against the stone floor behind me. Slow, deliberate, too close. I turned, my breath caught in my throat, and I saw it. Something moved between the shelves. Not just a flicker, not a trick of the candlelight. Something real. The sound of slow, deliberate scraping against the stone floor sent ice through my veins. My breath locked in my throat as I stood there, frozen, the parchment with the rules still clutched in my trembling hands. The air around me felt heavier, like the very walls of the library were leaning in, pressing against my skin. The darkness between the shelves stretched wider, deeper, like a mouth silently opening to swallow me whole. The instinct to turn and run burned in my muscles, seeing, but my legs refused to move. And then it stepped forward. Not all at once. A shape unfolded from the shadows, its form stretching, twisting, as if the darkness itself was knitting it together. A figure, tall, thin, unnatural. It didn't walk, it didn't glide. It shifted like a thing that had never known how to be human but was trying anyway. I wanted to scream. I wanted to bolt for the doors and hammer my fists against the ancient wood until someone let me out. But the rules. Rule 1. The shadows move. Do not acknowledge them. I squeezed my eyes shut. Don't look. Don't look. But it was too late. The air turned sharp, the temperature plummeting so fast my breath came out in thin white puffs. The silence grew heavier, thick with presence. The candlelight dimmed, as if something was stealing the glow away, drinking the light from the room. It knew I had seen it. Something brushed against my arm. Not skin, not fabric. Something that felt like cold smoke and splinters, slipping along my sleeve, curling at my wrist like fingers made of air. My knees nearly buckled. A voice. Not a whisper, not a sound carried by breath, but something felt more than heard, curling inside my skull like a living thing. You shouldn't be here. I squeezed my eyes shut harder, my fingers digging into my palms so hard my nails nearly broke the skin. It wasn't real. It wasn't real. If I didn't acknowledge it, it would go away. You see us. No, no, no. A slow, creaking noise echoed above me. My stomach lurched as I realized the bookshelves, the towering shelves lined with sacred texts older than time itself, were shifting. The wood groaned, shifting like bones grinding against each other, rearranging themselves around me. The Vatican Library was changing. My heart slammed against my ribs, my feet stumbled back on their own, my body desperate to run, even as my mind screamed at me to follow the rules. Somewhere in the distance, a sound, a dull, rhythmic knock. 1. I sucked in a sharp breath. No, no, not this, not now. 2. The parchment crackled in my grip, my hands trembling as I pressed it against my chest. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The knocking was coming from the main entrance. There was no one else here, no visitors, no staff, no one, and yet something was at the door. 3. My stomach flipped. The rule. If it knocks 3 times, it's already inside. A soft shuffle of movement. I didn't have to turn around to know. I felt it. Something was behind me. Cold breath tickled the back of my neck. The slow, deliberate scrape of something sharp against the stone. The whisper of fabric, too close, too wrong, too hungry. The knocking had been a trick. It wasn't trying to get in. It was already here. I clenched my teeth, my chest tight with terror. Don't move. Don't speak. Don't acknowledge it. A shift in the air. The candles flickered again, their glow stretching toward me, as if the flames themselves were afraid of whatever stood in the darkness. Then a soft, impossible sound. A page turning. My breath caught. The red book. My head jerked toward the long oak table in the center of the library, where the restricted texts were stacked in neat ancient piles. And there it was. A single red-covered book sat at the very top. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. The pages fluttered, though there was no wind. The book trembled, shifting like something inside was trying to push out. My chest squeezed tight. The rule. Never open the red book. Never touch it. Never acknowledge it. But it was too late, because the book wasn't waiting for me to open it. It was opening itself. A low, guttural creak rumbled through the air as the cover split apart, the pages unfurling, peeling back like the petals of a rotting flower. And inside, in the very center of the book, an eye. Not ink, not paint, not an illustration drawn by human hands. A real living eye, embedded in the paper like flesh woven into parchment, wet and glistening. And it was looking right at me. A sharp crack echoed as the entire library lurched. The bookshelves trembled, the wooden beams above groaning. The eye in the book widened, its pupil dilating, the wet skin around it twitching. Something laughed. Not a voice, not a person. The library itself. I stumbled backward, my legs numb with fear. The shadows moved again, stretching, sharpening. And then, the candles died. Total darkness swallowed me whole. And then, in the pitch black, a voice whispered, closer than before. You broke the rules. The air vanished from my lungs. The darkness pressed against my skin as if it were alive, watching, waiting. And then, just when I thought the silence would consume me whole, a single footstep. Heavy, deliberate. the sound of leather pressing against the cold stone floor. The librarian was here. I couldn't see him. The darkness was absolute, thick, suffocating, but I could feel him. The weight of his presence pressed against my skin, coiling around me like unseen fingers wrapping around my throat. Another footstep. Closer. My body screamed to run, to flee into the endless maze of shelves, but I couldn't move. Not because of fear, because something was holding me still. The air grew colder, biting against my exposed skin. My breath, shallow and rapid, came out in thin white clouds, vanishing into the void. The rules. Rule 5. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the librarian will check on you. Do not speak to him. I pressed my lips together so hard they ached. Don't speak. Don't even breathe too loudly. A soft, wet sound, like something stretching, tearing. Then, the smile. I couldn't see it, but I felt it. The sheer wrongness of it. A grin too wide, stretching across a face that didn't belong to anything human. The air around me hummed, charged with something ancient, something that had been waiting far too long. The librarian stopped just inches away. A finger, cold, bony, inhumanly long, brushed against my cheek. The sensation sent a jolt of nausea through my gut. His breath, if he had any, smelled of ink and rotting parchment, of something ancient and decayed, something that had never left this place. I clenched my fists. My entire body trembled. Do not react. Do not acknowledge him. He leaned in closer. A low, almost playful exhale against my ear. Then he whispered, "Would you like to borrow a book?" The words slithered through the air, a voice not made for human ears. It sounded like pages turning where there were no books, like the rustling of something dry, old, hungry. I squeezed my eyes shut. You have to answer me. No, I didn't. That was the rule. But my mind, God, my mind was slipping. My instincts screamed at me to respond, to do anything to make him go away. A second hand landed on my shoulder. The fingers curled, pressed. 1,000 thoughts clawed at my skull. What would happen if I spoke? Would my voice come out of my mouth, or would he take it from me? Would my body become his, trapped here forever, forced to roam the library in his place? A new sound, something soft, familiar, a book closing. The red book. No, it was still open. I had seen it. The eye had seen me. A feeling poured into my chest. Something beyond fear, something deeper. I was trapped between two impossible horrors. The eye and the book. The librarian. Two things that should not exist, vying for my attention. Another footstep. I realized then, he wasn't alone. Shuffling movements. Multiple figures. Emerging from the blackness between the shelves. Not just the librarian, the shadows. The ones I had seen before. The ones I had acknowledged. I broke 2 rules. I had seen them. I had seen the book. I was going to die. No, worse. I was going to become something else. The librarian's fingers tightened on my shoulder. He was waiting. And then, for the first time, I heard it. A distant sound. Faint. Hollow. A single stair creaking. I almost sobbed. The staircase. The 14th step. Something was coming up from below. No. This wasn't supposed to happen. I had been told not to step on it. I never did. But something else had. Something that had been waiting beneath. The shadows shifted. The librarian's grip loosened. The figures beyond the shelves turned their heads. Sharp, unnatural, cracking bones that shouldn't be able to move that way. Even they were afraid. The stair groaned again. Closer. A breath. Deep, ragged, wet. And then, a whisper from below. "Why won't you come down?" My stomach turned to ice. The figures recoiled. Even the librarian took a single step back. I couldn't see it, but I felt the weight of something massive rising from the lower levels. A shape crawling up from where it was never meant to leave. The shadows withdrew from me. Not because I was safe, because something worse had come. The book snapped shut. The air shifted violently, like the very room had been turned inside out. The shelves groaned. The entire library shuddered. And then, the candles flickered back to life. The darkness pulled away. The weight of something unseen lifted from my chest, leaving me gasping, knees nearly buckling. The librarian was gone. The shadows had melted back into the shelves. But something else was still here. The staircase stretched beyond sight, its bottom swallowed by something darker than the void itself. The red book was missing. And then a sound. A knock. No. A slow, deliberate, wet thud against the library doors. 1. My heartbeat stopped. 2. I turned, my breath shaking, my fingers digging into my arms. 3. A silence stretched out, thick and suffocating. And then the handle turned. The door creaked open. Not in the way an old, heavy door should. There was no resistance, no weight. It swung inward effortlessly, like it had been waiting. The light from the candles flickered, stretching long shadows across the marble floor. The space beyond the threshold was wrong. It wasn't the hallway I had walked through earlier. It wasn't anything I recognized. A vast, endless blackness yawned beyond the door. Not empty, not void, alive. A depth that seemed to breathe, shift, pulse with something watching from within. My body locked up, every nerve screaming at me to run. But my feet wouldn't move. The silence inside the library deepened, pressing into my skull like I had been buried underground. Then, a step. A single, wet, dragging step from the darkness beyond the door. I didn't want to see it. God, I didn't. But my eyes were already looking, locked on the thing that was stepping inside. Tall. Thin. Too thin. Its skin didn't belong on its body. Taut. Pulled. Stretched too tightly over a frame that didn't fit. It had no face. Just a smooth, pale surface where features should have been. Except for the mouth. A mouth that split open far too wide. It took another step forward, and as it moved, it changed. The library lights flickered again, and in that split second of darkness, it was suddenly closer. Wrong. Twisting. A shape that kept shifting. Something that did not have a final form. The door slammed shut behind it. I stumbled back, my breath coming in sharp, shallow gasps. I wanted to run, but where? The shelves loomed around me, stretching into the distance, corridors that felt endless now, looping, shifting, twisting as if the library itself was changing to trap me inside. The creature tilted its head. The bones in its neck cracked wetly. It wasn't just watching me, it was waiting, waiting for me to break. I forced my breath to slow. The rules. I had to follow the rules. Rule 3. If you hear a knock, do not open the door. I hadn't opened it. It opened on its own. That meant no loopholes, no excuses. It was inside now. A whisper curled through the air, not from the creature, from the shelves. A voice, soft, almost familiar. Don't run. I stiffened. It likes when you run. The creature twitched, its entire body spasmed in a jerky, unnatural motion, like it had just been reassembled from a pile of mismatched limbs. It took another step, and then a sound. Not from the creature, from the staircase, the one that should have ended at 13 steps. The groan of wood. I turned my head just slightly and saw it. The staircase was wrong. The bottom had no end. The shadows beneath the final steps swirled like a liquid void, something alive, something reaching, and something was coming up. A hand emerged from the blackness, a hand that was not human. It was elongated, warped, bone-thin, fingers stretched too long, tapering into needle-like points. The skin, if it could be called skin, was stained like old parchment soaked in ink, turning translucent at the edges. It curled against the wooden step, too real, too solid. A second hand followed, and then a head. It wasn't the librarian, it wasn't a shadow. It was something from beneath, something that should never have been allowed to rise. My vision blurred. The library was closing in around me. The creature near the door, the faceless thing, hadn't moved because it was waiting for the other thing to arrive. A choice. No, a trap. Something pulled at the edge of my mind. A whisper. A thought not my own. You can only escape one. The thing from the stairs lifted itself higher. Its body wasn't right. It had never been human. But there were remnants. Traces of something that had once tried to be. Its mouth, stitched shut. And yet, I could still hear it. A low, wet breathing sound rattled through the air. A sound that didn't come from lungs, but from somewhere deeper. Somewhere beneath the library itself. The faceless creature shifted. It turned its head toward the thing on the stairs. And then, it smiled. A mouth that hadn't been there before split open across its featureless face, a smile of recognition. It knew the thing from below, and the thing from below knew it. I wasn't just trapped between them. I was the reason they were reuniting. The realization hit too late. The creature lunged. Not toward me. Toward the other one. The two things collided. A sickening, wet sound, flesh folding into flesh, bones snapping, reforming, reshaping into something worse. They weren't fighting. They were becoming. The shadows rippled violently, distorting, tearing apart the shape of the library itself. The shelves groaned as if they were screaming. The walls were moving. The books, thousands of them, began to turn their pages violently, as if screaming warnings in languages I couldn't understand. And then, silence. Everything stopped. The two figures had melded together. Something else stood in their place, something that had never existed before. It turned toward me, and it spoke. You let us in. The candlelight snuffed out, and the library went completely dark. I wanted to run, but my body wouldn't move. Every muscle was locked in place, as if the dark itself was holding me still. And then, a breath. Right behind me. Warm, wet, too close. Something was leaning over me. I couldn't see it. I didn't want to. The rules. My mind screamed for them. Desperate. Something to hold on to. Rule 1. The shadows move. Do not acknowledge them. Was this a shadow? Was this... No. No excuses. No loopholes. I squeezed my eyes shut. Don't look. Don't react. The breath came again. This time, closer. Hot, sticky air pushed against my ear, my neck. A sound followed. A wet, thick clicking. Teeth. Something with teeth was smiling against my skin. I clenched my jaw, fighting every nerve screaming at me to run. It wants me to react. It wants me to see it. A long, thin fingernail, not a finger, just the nail, dragged against my shoulder. Slow, careful. The way you might test the surface of a knife before pressing down. A whisper, too many voices tangled together, drifted through the dark. Not yet. The darkness shattered. Candles flickered back to life. The library was still wrong. The shelves had moved. The walls stretched too high, too far. The corridors that should have led back to the entrance were twisted into something else, something that did not want me to leave. The thing behind me was gone, but it had left something behind. A book, resting on the table. Not just any book. The red book. My breath hitched. No markings, no title, just a smooth red cover. It hadn't been here before. It shouldn't be here. Rule 2. Never open the red book. I took a step back, and the book moved, not slid, not shifted. It pulsed, like something inside it was breathing. I turned away and froze. Someone was standing between the shelves, watching me. Not a shadow, not the thing from the door. This was worse, because I knew exactly what it was. The librarian. His robes were blacker than the dark itself. His hands folded neatly in front of him. His smile, too wide, too sharp. But his eyes, God, his eyes weren't eyes. Just empty sockets, cavernous and endless, like two holes tunneled straight through his skull. And he was waiting for me to speak. I forced my lips together, holding back the scream climbing up my throat. Don't talk to him. Don't even breathe too loud. I took a step back. The librarian took a step forward. I moved again. He followed, matching me, step for step. His head tilted. His smile widened. You look lost. His voice did not belong in this world, like it had been dragged from somewhere deep beneath. I didn't answer. His fingers twitched. I stepped back again, and my foot landed on something that was not the floor. Wood. The staircase. The bottom of the stairs was right behind me. I hadn't been near it before, but the library had changed, moved. My blood ran cold. 13 steps. It should only have 13 steps. I turned just enough to look, and my stomach dropped. 14. 14 steps. The 14th was waiting for me to step down. I felt it, even without seeing, a presence below. Something breathing beneath the wood, waiting for me to make a mistake. The librarian was still watching. His lips parted. It's all right, he whispered. His voice came from inside my head now. You should see what's waiting for you below. A choice. No. A trap. Go forward. Face him. Go back. Face whatever was beneath the stairs. A sound rose up from below. A scraping. Something with claws. Something that wanted out. The librarian took another step. His shadow stretched too far. It was reaching for me. I had seconds, and I did the only thing I could. I ran. Not down, not toward him, but through the shelves. Books toppled as I shoved past. The walls shifted around me. The library was trying to keep me in. I didn't know where I was running. I just ran. The sound of footsteps followed, not mine. His. The librarian was behind me now, no longer waiting, no longer smiling. Now he was hunting, and I was trapped inside his domain. The footsteps were getting closer, not hurried, not frantic, measured. The librarian wasn't running, because he didn't need to. I could feel it now, the way the library itself was twisting around me. The shelves that had been solid moments ago were moving, shifting into a maze with no way out. The air was thick, heavy, wrong, like something pressing in from all sides. The dim candlelight flickered, and in the corners of my vision, the shadows twisted. I kept moving, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I didn't know where I was anymore, hadn't known for a while. But then I saw it. At the far end of the corridor, past the endless shelves, a door. Wooden, old, but real. It wasn't the entrance, but I didn't care. It was an exit. I sprinted toward it, heart slamming against my ribs. The footsteps behind me never changed pace. Still slow, still steady, still coming. The door was closed now. A few more steps. I could make it. But then something knocked, not behind me, in front of me. The sound came from the door. One knock, I skidded to a stop. Two knocks, my blood ran cold. Three knocks, it was already inside. I turned to run, too late. The door burst open, and something stepped through. Tall, thin, wrong. Its skin was pale, too smooth, stretched too tight. Its eyes were nothing but black pits, its mouth a thin, jagged gash that curled up at the edges. It wasn't smiling. It didn't need to. I staggered back. My body screamed to run, but the air was too thick, too heavy. The thing moved, not walked, glided. Its head tilted unnaturally, a sharp, twitching motion. It was looking at me. No, it was seeing me. I felt it like cold hands closing around my throat. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to see this. And it knew. A voice slithered through the air, crawling into my skull. He does not like when rules are broken. It wasn't speaking. It wasn't even moving. But the words were inside me. Behind me, the footsteps stopped. I turned my head just slightly enough to see. The librarian had halted a few feet away. Watching. Waiting. And I realized the truth. I wasn't being hunted. I was being judged, trapped between two things that should not exist. Neither moving, neither speaking, both waiting to see what I would do. My hands clenched into fists, my body locked in place. And then, the shadows moved. Not just flickering, shifting, stretching along the floor, reaching. Thin, spindly fingers of darkness crawling toward me. The figures were no longer in the corners of my vision. They were here. They had been waiting, watching. And now they were claiming me. The first one rose from the ground beside me. Its body was all wrong. Its limbs too long, too thin. A hollow, rasping breath escaped its featureless face. Another one peeled away from the walls. More of them. Too many. Closing in. I couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Their touch was cold. Not like ice, like absence. Like something pulling pieces of me away. I tried to remember the rules, tried to hold on to them. But the rules were breaking. They weren't just moving now. They knew I saw them, and they were taking me. The librarian still hadn't moved. The thing from the door still stood there, has it still staring, like none of this mattered to them, like this was always how it was supposed to end. But then, something shifted, something changed. The shadows froze. For the first time, the librarian moved, not toward me, toward them. And in a voice so cold it turned my stomach inside out, he spoke. He is not yours. The shadows recoiled, not in fear, but in anger. A low, horrible sound rumbled through the library, not a growl, not a scream, something deeper, something ancient. And then the shadows began to leave. One by one they peeled away, sinking back into the corners of the library, retreating. The air grew lighter. My body was my own again. The thing at the door didn't move, didn't protest. It simply turned, stepped back into the darkness, and the door slammed shut behind it. Gone. Everything was gone, except the librarian. He stood there, his too wide smile still stretched across his face, his empty sockets still locked onto me. And I finally understood. He didn't save me. He chose me, and that was worse than anything else. The librarian's grin stretched across his face, unmoving, unnatural. His empty sockets held me there, pinned in place, even though the shadows were gone, even though the thing from the door had disappeared. I should have felt relief. I didn't, because now I was alone with him. The candlelight flickered, casting strange, twitching shapes across the shelves. The silence pressed in, thick and unnerving. The rules had never said what happened after the librarian chose someone. And I was about to find out. The air felt wrong. Not cold, not heavy, thin. Like something had been taken away. Like the library wasn't just a place anymore. Like it was alive. The librarian took a step forward, not rushed, not slow, just deliberate. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Something in me knew, if I ran, he would follow. If I spoke, I would never leave. So I just stood there. His grin never faltered. His hollow eyes never blinked. He reached into his robes, pulling something out. A book, read. The blood drained from my face. The second rule, never open the red book. But he was holding it, offering it. No title, no markings, just a red cover. I felt it immediately, the pull, like something inside it knew me. The rules said I couldn't open it, but they never said what would happen if someone else did. The librarian held it out, watching, waiting. A choice, a trap. My hands shook. My breath came out in shallow gasps. This was a test. I didn't know the rules anymore. Didn't know what I was allowed to do. If I refused, would he force me? If I took it? No. No, I couldn't. I took a step back. The librarian's smile didn't change, but his head tilted, slightly, sharply, like he was listening. Then, A sound, a whisper. Not from the librarian, not from me, from the book. The leather cover twitched, a breath shuddered through it like lungs inside the pages. And then, it opened. On its own, the pages turned violently, flipping, snapping faster, until they stopped. And the words were moving. Not ink, not letters, something else, something alive. The words shifted, twisted, stretched, and then they took shape, a face, my face, and it was screaming. I staggered backward. The book breathed, a sound like wet lungs filling with air. I tried to look away. I couldn't. The letters moved again, crawling, reforming. A new sentence. You were never meant to leave. My stomach dropped. The library groaned around me. Shelves shuddered, books rattling, the air turning thick again. The walls moved. No, not the walls, the shadows. They were coming back, sliding across the floor, slithering up the shelves, and they weren't staying in the corners anymore. They were coming for me. I spun around. The exit. I needed to find the exit, but the corridors were wrong now, twisting, shifting, closing in. There was no way out. The librarian took another step. He wasn't stopping me. Because he didn't have to. He had already won. The book trembled, the pages rippling, and I felt it. Something reaching through it, something pulling me in. I couldn't let that happen. I did the only thing I could. I ran. Not toward an exit. Not toward safety. There was only one place left. The stairs. I bolted down the corridor, heart hammering, lungs burning. The library stretched on forever, the paths looping back on themselves, the shelves never ending. But the stairs? I found them. A single spiral leading down into the archives. The air changed, colder, heavy with something that smelled wrong. I didn't stop, didn't hesitate. I took the first step, then another. The librarian's footsteps followed, measured. I kept going. 1 step, 2, 3. I counted each one, forcing myself to remember. The rule, 13 steps. That's all there should be. My feet hit the 12th. My body froze. I knew what came next. I felt it. The stair beneath me, too soft, not stone. Something else. Something breathing. The 14th stair. A whisper rose from below. Not a voice. Not words. Breath. Slow. Heavy. Rising up from the dark beneath me. I couldn't move. Couldn't step forward. Couldn't go back. Because I wasn't alone. I felt it. Hands against my ankles. Clawed. Thin. Hungry. I looked down. The stairs were gone. There was only darkness. And in it, something looked back. It had no eyes, but it saw me. It had no mouth, but it was smiling. And as the hands tightened, the librarian whispered behind me. You should have taken the book. The hands pulled, and I fell. The blackness swallowed me whole, an endless void that stretched in every direction. There was no ground beneath me, no ceiling above, only the sensation of being dragged downward, deeper than the library should go. The air was thick, cloying, pressing against my skin like wet fabric. And then, for the first time since I stepped on the 14th stair, I heard it. The breathing. Not my own. Not the whispery gasps of something unseen. This was different. It was slow, heavy, a presence. It filled the darkness surrounding me, pressing against my chest, curling into my ears. I felt it inside my skull, like it wasn't just hearing me, but remembering me. Then the whisper started. Not from behind me, not in front, inside me. My thoughts weren't my own anymore. The words crawled through my head, cold, alien. They weren't spoken aloud. They didn't need to be. You should not be here. You were never meant to leave. You are ours now. My stomach twisted. My limbs felt distant, like they weren't mine anymore. The darkness tightened. I could feel it now, something in it. Many things, watching, waiting. And then, just when I thought I would fall forever, I hit the ground. The impact knocked the breath from my lungs. My body ached, but the relief was short-lived, because I wasn't alone. The air stirred. Something moved. I forced myself up, hands pressing against the stone beneath me. It was cold, damp, wrong. And then I saw them. At first, they were just shapes, shadows shifting at the edges of my vision. But they weren't like the ones above. These ones didn't hide. They stood. Tall, too tall. Their limbs were stretched, unnatural, twitching with tiny spasms, as if they weren't used to standing still. And their faces. No, they had no faces, just blank hollows where features should be. They didn't move toward me. They just watched. The breathing grew louder. The stone beneath me shuddered. A deep, guttural groan rippled through the air, vibrating through my bones. The ground wasn't just stone. It was alive, and I was standing on its ribs. Panic clawed up my throat. I stumbled back, my feet sliding against the damp surface. The figures around me still hadn't moved, but I knew they could. I knew they would. I had broken the rule. I had stepped on the 14th stair, and now I was in their world. I forced myself to breathe, to think. The library had rules. Rules were meant to be followed. I needed to find a way back, but there was no staircase anymore, no walls, no books, just this place. The figures twitched. One took a step forward. Its leg bent wrong, too many joints flexing at once. The moment its foot touched the ground, the stone beneath me shivered, reacting to its presence. I backed away. Another moved. Then another. Not fast, not slow. Just inevitable. I had to get out. I turned, my eyes scanning the darkness. A corridor. It stretched into the distance, carved from the same pulsing stone. A single flickering light glowed far down the path, weak and sickly yellow. I didn't hesitate. I ran. The breathing followed. Not just one. Many. The ground shifted beneath my steps, like it was alive, reacting to me. The light ahead didn't get closer. The corridor stretched, changing, twisting. And then, a knock. I froze. Not from behind. Not from the figures. From ahead. Knock, knock, silence. My blood turned ice cold. The rule. If you hear a knock, do not open the door. The corridor ended now. A massive wooden door stood in my path. It was old, rotted, carved with strange symbols that pulsed like veins. The flickering light above it barely illuminated the deep scratches gouged into its surface, marks of something trying to claw its way through. And then, a third knock. No. No, no, no. The air snapped. The door creaked. Something breathed on the other side. I heard the wet, slithering sound of flesh moving against wood. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to hear this. The figures behind me were still coming. The thing in the dark was already inside, and I was trapped between them. My heart pounded so hard I thought my ribs would crack. Then, a whisper. Not from the figures, not from the thing at the door, from above, a voice I recognized, the librarian. You should not have come this far. The shadows around me surged. Hands clawed from the walls, grasping, reaching. The door buckled, and then it opened. The darkness beyond it wasn't like the void that had swallowed me before. This was worse. Because in that darkness, something was waiting, and as the hands dragged me toward it, I screamed. The hands dragging me forward weren't human. Too many fingers, too many joints. Their grip was ice cold, sinking through my skin, pressing into my bones. The door gaped open before me, revealing nothing but a void so deep, so consuming, it felt like looking into the space between existence itself. Something was waiting inside. Something that had been waiting for a very long time. The hands yanked me forward. I fought. I clawed at the stone floor, my nails breaking as I scrambled for any kind of hold. The figures behind me, those twisted, faceless watchers, stood motionless, as if they had done their part. They had delivered me. I was no longer their concern. I tried to scream again, but it came out as a choked gasp. The thing in the dark was breathing, slow, deliberate. It was taking its time, savoring this. Then, footsteps. Not mine, not the thing's, coming from behind me. A slow, rhythmic pace. The sound of boots against stone. I turned my head. A mistake. He was there. The librarian. Black robes flowing like liquid shadow. A face that wasn't quite a face, as if someone had stretched a mask too tight over something that didn't understand what a human should look like. His mouth was too wide, his teeth too straight, his eyes empty. He stopped, tilted his head, and smiled. You have gone too far. The voice wasn't loud, but it reverberated inside my skull. Like it wasn't sound at all, just something that had always been in my head, waiting to be spoken. I shook my head. I hadn't spoken to him. I knew the rule. Do not speak to the librarian. But that didn't mean he wouldn't speak to me. The hands pulling me forward tightened, the fingers stretching unnaturally long, pressing against my ribs like they were testing my shape, preparing to mold me into something else. The librarian sighed. They are impatient. They have waited too long. His head twitched, a single, jerking motion, unnatural in its stillness. But you do not belong here yet. The thing in the dark, it reacted. A low growl rose from the void. The hands that gripped me hesitated. And then, the door slammed shut. The force of it sent a shockwave through the corridor. The hands holding me snapped backward, vanishing into the darkness beyond the sealed door. I collapsed onto the cold stone, gasping for breath. The librarian still stood there, his head slightly tilted, as if studying me like a particularly interesting book. You are not ready. His voice curled around me, filling the space like a thick fog. I tried to push myself up, but my limbs were shaking too badly. The corridor had changed again, the walls closer, the ceiling lower. The air was thick, damp, suffocating. I should have been grateful. I wasn't. Because I knew what this meant. The library wasn't done with me yet. The librarian took a slow step forward. His robes didn't shift like fabric. They moved like smoke, like they weren't entirely part of this reality. He leaned in, just enough for me to feel the coldness radiating off him. You must leave. A command, not a suggestion. My body screamed at me to obey, but the stairs were gone. The corridor stretched out in two directions now. One led into a tight passage, lined with shelves that hadn't been there before. The other, I knew where the other led. Back to the reading hall. Back to the books. Back to the red book. A chill ran down my spine. I had never touched it, never looked for it. But it had been waiting for me anyway. Go. The librarian didn't move, but something shifted in the air. A pressure I couldn't see but could feel, like I was being gently pushed, guided. I had no choice. I ran. The shelves blurred past me, the books stacked too high, their spines covered in text I couldn't understand. I didn't stop to read them. I didn't stop to think, because I could hear it. Something was following me. Not footsteps. Something softer. Like the turning of a page, a whisper of parchment against parchment. The books were watching. I kept running. The corridor twisted, turning in on itself, the walls shifting as if they were breathing. And then, I saw it, sitting at the end of the passage, a single table, a single book, red cover, no title, waiting. I stopped. My chest heaved. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. I didn't move closer. I didn't need to, because the book was already opening. Its pages turned on their own, flipping, faster, faster. Words I didn't understand bled across the paper, shifting like ink that never dried. And then, it stopped. A single page, a single sentence, a sentence written in a language I should not have been able to read. But I did, because it spoke itself into my mind. Look up. I froze. Every nerve in my body screamed not to. I knew what I would see. I was not alone. Something stood behind me. Something tall. Something waiting. The moment I looked, it would see me. And then, no rule would save me. I clenched my fists. My entire body trembled. The air was thick with something wrong. I forced myself to breathe, and I did the only thing I could do. I slammed the book shut. The entire library shook. The lights above flickered, and then the whispers began to scream. I ran. The walls twisted, the books burst from the shelves, flinging themselves open, words spilling out like liquid, chasing me, trying to consume me. I didn't stop. I didn't look up. I just ran. And then, I saw it. The stairs. The way out. I lunged for them, my foot hitting the first step just as I felt the air shift behind me. The thing had moved. I didn't stop to count the stairs. I didn't dare. I just ran. And as I reached the top, just as my hand hit the door to the library above, I heard it. A voice. Not the librarian's. Not the whispers. Something worse. Something that had seen me. You opened the book. The door burst open, and I fell through. I hit the ground hard, cold stone beneath me, the air ripped from my lungs. The weight of something unseen pressed down, thick as smoke, suffocating. My ears rang, my vision blurred, and for a moment I hoped that I was dead. That whatever was coming had already taken me. Then I heard the breathing. Slow, wet, too close. I forced my eyes open. The library was gone. No bookshelves, no flickering candlelight, only darkness stretching in every direction, shifting like liquid. The floor beneath me wasn't stone anymore. It pulsed, almost alive. I could feel it moving under my palms, something writhing beneath the surface. I wasn't alone. A shape loomed in front of me. Tall, twisted. Its limbs were wrong, too long, too thin, its head tilting at an unnatural angle. The voice that had spoken before rasped through the blackness, but now it came from everywhere. From above, from below, from inside me. You opened the book. It wasn't a question. It was a sentence. I scrambled backward, my hands sinking into the pulsing ground. The thing in front of me didn't move, but I could feel it watching. My heartbeat pounded in my skull, a frantic, helpless rhythm. I needed to get out. I turned, pushing myself to my feet, but the shadows shifted again. More figures emerged from the darkness, their shapes flickering in and out of focus, like they weren't fully real. But they were real enough to block my path. The first one stepped closer. You saw us. The second followed. You heard us. A third, you let us in. The whispering rose into a deafening chorus. Dozens of voices speaking at once, layering over each other like 100 overlapping thoughts, all pressing into my skull. I clamped my hands over my ears. It didn't help. I tried to run. The ground buckled beneath me. Something reached up, grasping my ankle, yanking me down. I hit the floor again, my chin slamming against the pulsing surface, and a sharp, metallic taste flooded my mouth. Blood. The figures closed in. You broke the rules. My breath hitched. I had. I had looked at the shadows. I had opened the book. I had heard the knock. I had stepped on the 14th stair. And I squeezed my eyes shut, dread curling deep in my stomach. I had spoken to the librarian. I had broken every single rule, and now I was here. You will stay, the voices whispered. The darkness swelled, creeping up my legs, wrapping around my arms. I thrashed, but it was like sinking in tar. My body wouldn't move right. My limbs felt heavy, numb, dissolving into the black. No, I couldn't stay. I dug my fingers into the shifting ground, forcing my head up. In the distance, if distance even existed in this place, I saw something. A flicker of light. Faint, fading. A doorway. A way out. I didn't hesitate. I fought against the weight dragging me down, inching forward, my arms shaking. The figures around me hissed, their whispers turning to shrieks, but they didn't touch me. Not yet. They were waiting. For me to give up. For me to sink completely. I wasn't going to. I clawed forward, my fingertips brushing against the edge of the light. A sensation jolted through me, like a shock of electricity, sharp, painful, but real. The figures lunged. I threw myself forward. Cold air slammed into me. The pressure vanished, the whispers cut off. I hit the floor again, hard stone, not the pulsing blackness from before. My vision blurred, my head spinning, and for a second I was sure I was still trapped. That it had tricked me. Then I saw the shelves, the books, the flickering candlelight, the library. I gasped, my chest heaving. I was back. I was back. A slow creaking noise echoed through the space. I turned my head. The red book lay on the ground beside me, its pages fluttering, open. The librarian stood over it, his hollow eyes fixed on me, his too wide grin stretching impossibly. You should not have done that, he murmured. The ground trembled beneath me. The candlelight dimmed, shrinking as shadows stretched, moving, crawling closer. I had escaped that place, but I wasn't safe. The rules were still broken, and they were coming for me. The last candle flickered out, and the darkness swallowed everything.